Hey there, bookworms! Welcome back to Reading Rendezvous with Natasha. Today we're diving into Chapter 2 of Unenchanted by Chanda Hahn. Now, if you missed out our first chapter, don't worry, I'll catch you up real quick. We left off with our protagonist, Mina, on a field trip with her school at Babushka's bakery. After a boring start, something weird starts happening. Is the tour guide Claire hypnotizing the boys? Suddenly, disaster striked as Mina's crush Brody is accidentally pushed over the railing and dangling precariously. Are you hooked yet? Well, buckle up, bookworms, and let's dive in on this adventure through Chapter 2 of Unenchanted by Chanda Hahn. Unenchanted, Chapter 2. Screams of horror reverberated off the walls. Adrenaline took over as Mina lunged for Brody, missing his body entirely, but grabbing the shoulder strap of his black Jansport backpack. She had done it without thinking, even though she wasn't very strong, and now she gritted her teeth as she slammed into the railing, which caused her to cry out in pain. There was a moment of suspended animation when she thought she had him and they were safe. But then her feet slowly lost contact with the floor. Screaming, she started moving upward and over, her feet dangling uselessly. She was going to go over the railing with him. Suddenly, hands grabbed her around the waist, anchoring her. Both her and Brody's downward momentum stopped with a jolt and a loud rip. She kept a death grip on the backpack strap and felt pain shoot up through both arms. Brody had one arm through the other strap. It had slid down to his elbow. Reaching up, he used his other hand to hold on to get a firmer grip. He stared upward, a panicked look on his face, the catwalk still swaying precariously. "Don't worry, I've got you, Brody." Mina tried to sound comforting, even though her muscles burned and her arms shook from the strain of holding on to someone twice her weight. "And I've got you." Nan's voice was muffled from exertion. She was the one who had kept Mina from going over. Other students began to aid in the rescue. Stephen and Frank reached over to grab the backpack, helping to relieve the burden of Brody's weight. They helped pull him up to where Brody was able to grab on to the lower safety bar. Their own safety set aside, a few students lay on their stomachs and knees to reach through the rails to grab onto Brody as he slowly pulled his own weight up to where his feet could find purchase on the catwalk. Mina felt like she couldn't breathe until Brody had stepped back over the railing and was safe. Once he was out of danger, she fell to her knees on the diamond-shaped grating, ignoring the painful prods as she was overcome with a feeling of intense relief. Brody's backpack was dumped on the floor next to her. He leaned down to talk to Mina, but Stephen and Frank pulled him away in excitement. Mina looked at the ripped backpack and had to blink twice to see if she was delusional. The rip she had heard was Brody's backpack ripping, and it was in the exact same place and size as the hole in her backpack from this morning. Only, he could probably afford to buy a new one. Even though Brody was safe, Mina felt like she wasn't. She felt as if she were being smothered, as if some unseen force was watching her, judging her, and the feeling was becoming unbearably strong. With all the kids' eyes on her, she felt trapped. Even Claire looked rattled and scared, her blonde hair disheveled, her safety hat gone. Limping, she tried to stand and gain control of the students, who were celebrating, hugging, and crying. Several students slapped Mina's back. "That was awesome!" "I can't believe you acted so quickly." "You saved his life." "Way to go, Grimes." "I think it's time we went outside," Claire said. her eyes downcast in shame. Everyone followed her to the closest emergency exit and down the steps to a side door that led outside. The bright sunlight touching the students' faces seemed to burn away the weary fog that had previously overtaken them. Mina felt her unease slightly diminish once she was a good distance away from the building, but it didn't leave entirely. They took the long way and walked around the side of the bakery until they came to the front entrance and the bus. Mr. West was there, along with Mr. Brimwell. For an irresponsible chaperone, Mr. West was quick to see that there was a problem. He read the agitation on Claire's face and instantly became alert. "What happened? What's wrong?" he asked. Claire spoke up, her face red with embarrassment. "There was an unfortunate accident on the catwalk." Mr. West's eyes went wide in fear. His bald head looked like a pendulum as he began swinging it back and forth, trying to take a head count of his pack of unruly students. "Yeah, Brody almost died," Stephen blurted out. Savannah let out a high-pitched squeak of alarm. "He fell backward off the catwalk, but Mina, saved him," Frank yelled. Nothing else could be heard over the roar of voices as everyone spoke up at once, trying to relay their own version of the death-defying story. Mina was uncomfortable with all the staring, so she tried to maneuver to the outside of the crowd and duck behind Nan, who was no longer preoccupied with her phone. Mr. Brimwell paled and looked to Claire. "Is this true? How could you have let this happen?" Claire pinched her lips together angrily. "It wasn't my fault. They were messing around on the catwalk, and a support cinch failed." Mina's stomach dropped, and she felt sick. None of them knew the real reason. None of this would have happened if she hadn't dropped her chewed-up number 2 pencil. This whole mess started because of how clumsy she was and her inherent bad luck. It was another epic disaster to add to the list in her sock drawer at home. She felt so disheartened. "You let these kids on the catwalk?" Mr. Brimwell accused her. His round face turned tomato red with anger. But that didn't dissuade Claire. "Why wouldn't I? I've been taking people on the catwalk for years, and it's never bothered you before. I've always ended tours there." They drew closer together, and the heated argument became indecipherable amongst the growing babble of Mina's classmates. Mr. West's head seemed to be shaking in disbelief, and he kept looking over at Mina skeptically. She didn't blame him. She could hardly believe her own actions. Mina blushed as she looked past Savannah and over the heads of the students, searching for something or someone. She saw Brody spot her among the crowd and start to move in her direction. She tensed. She couldn't imagine him thanking her for such an embarrassing stunt, especially in front of 20 students with cell phones. She was likely to say something dumb and make a fool of herself. Mina couldn't look away as he maneuvered around the sympathetic girls to reach her. He was only feet away when Savannah cried his name and caught his attention. Brody and Mina both turned to find her running toward him, impossibly blonde hair swinging behind her as she ran into his arms. "Are you okay?" she asked hesitantly, unsure of her reception. Mina hoped he'd blow her off, but to her surprise, he cradled her in an enormous hug. "Brody, I'm so sorry," Savannah said when they'd pulled apart. Could she really be so oblivious to the audience around them? "I'm sorry about how I acted in the factory. You're right. I do need to grow up, and I promise to never embarrass you like that again." Her bottom lip actually trembled. "Savannah, What are you talking about? This wasn't your fault. No, not that. Our argument. I've done a lot of thinking and... What argument? Brody said, sounding frustrated. Mina heard stunned whispers throughout the crowd. Savannah, I almost died. Can we talk about this some other time? Wait, you don't remember? Truthfully, this whole morning is kind of a haze. I'm really not feeling well. Maybe I should just go home. Hope filled Savannah's face, her tremble ceasing when she realized Brody didn't remember their breakup. You're right, Brody. Let's get you home. She clutched his arm possessively and led him toward the bus and a panicked Mr. West. Brody, my boy, I hope your family doesn't think it was negligence on my part. I got called away on an important phone call. Mr. West placed his hand on Brody's shoulder and gave a wary glance toward Mr. Brimwell. Turning towards the rest of the students, he called out in a tone that only a teacher can do. All right, students, let's load up. Mina filed behind Nan and Pri and waited to board the bus. She watched Savannah lead the unsteady Brody up the steps onto the bus. Well, I guess that was the shortest breakup in history, Pri mumbled. Don't be too sure about that, Nan said thoughtfully, glancing at Brody. Mina watched him take a window seat and stare balefully out it in her direction. He seemed to be staring at her. Mina immediately looked at the ground, but when she looked back up, she still had his gaze. It was a tad uncomfortable. I mean, I don't even know what he sees in her, Pri continued. Don't worry, Pri. I have a feeling that the makeup is only temporary. As Mina boarded the bus, students began clapping and calling her name, reaching out to give her high fives and congratulate her on her heroic act. Except for one, who was still staring out the window. She felt like she was going to be sick. Her guilt was making her a nervous wreck. Should she apologize to Brody? That would mean she would have to go up to him and actually speak to the world's most handsome boy, who didn't seem eager to talk to her. Definitely not. Maybe she could slip him a note? That wouldn't do. What if his family sued hers? Yep, Mina was definitely going to puke. Keeping her head down, Mina hastily made her way to the back of the bus and slid down as far as she could into her seat in an attempt to hide. Nan slid in next to her. Kinda nice to be sitting next to a celebrity, Nan laughed. No, it's not. It's horrible, Mina said. You were wrong. I don't want to be popular. Maybe I should get your autograph and sell it on eBay. Or better yet, I could auction off your old English papers. I wonder how much money I would get for a D+. Mina was terrified at the prospect. Then I could buy that new handbag I wanted, Nan said. I hope you choke on the handbag, Mina shot back. Nan chuckled, but she quit making ribs at Mina's expense. She leaned out the bus aisle to take a peek. Sure enough, everyone was still looking toward her, pointing and whispering in her direction. Sighing in regret, she leaned back dramatically and drummed her fingers on her thighs. Aren't you going to tweet this? Mina said, noticing the lack of an electronic accessory in Nan's hands. I thought for sure you would have taken 50 photos by now. Can't, Nan said wistfully. Why not? I don't have my iPhone anymore. What happened? I threw it off the catwalk as soon as I saw you were in trouble. I mean, Come on. It was either hold on to my stupid phone or save my best friend's life, she said, holding out her hands and weighing imaginary items. Duh! Not a tough decision. Mina reached over and hugged Nan as tightly as she could. She knew how much Nan's life revolved around that stupid phone, and her friend did help save her. Nan made gagging noises as she squeezed harder and harder. Gee, let go, let go. Thank you, Nan, Mina smiled. Yeah, I know. You're indebted to me for life. You're my eternal slave and must sacrifice yourself to save me now. Blah, blah, blah. Nan waved her hands in the air like it was nothing. Mina and Nan sat back down in their seats and listened to the harmony of a busload of students texting, talking, and playing games on their cell phones. The chiming noise was a constant reminder of Nan's sacrifice. Nan, Mina began, getting ready to apologize again. Don't! Nan snapped, holding her pink polished finger up to silence any more words. I already regret it. Mina laughed. And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through Chapter 2 of Unenchanted by Chanda Hahn. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the next chapter. Thanks for watching Reading Rendezvous with Natasha. Let's read together again real soon. Bye!